For the first time in a while, we're getting back to another Multiverse Tale. And of course, today's also a community redraw. As I've done a bunch of times before, I put out 5 descriptions for different armors and creatures that were going to be showing up in today's episode, and my subscribers did their designs of what they thought those things should look like based on the descriptions. Today I'll be redrawing my favorite for each of the 5 submissions, as well as showing off the other stuff that was submitted, and of course telling today's Multiverse Tale. I hope you all enjoy. Let's get into it. Let's go. Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show. Astra stopped in front of the doors to the former agency of supernatural protection. She found herself dreading stepping in more and more every time she came here. Inside were all her so-called friends, people she should have felt safer and happier around, but every second she spent with them, she just felt they hated her more and more. She could practically feel the eye roll Alexis would give her as she walked in, contrasted with the praise they'd all shower on the little demon goody-goody, Mara. A blue light suddenly flared behind Astra. She turned to see Kayla walking up to her, along with her ever-present biomech enhancement/buddy, Charlie. Kayla asked, "Are we getting here at the same time, or are you just dreading seeing Alexis again?" At the mention of her former best friend's name, Astra could practically feel once more the swift right hook Alexis had hammered against her jaw some months earlier. All the same, Astra put on a confident, yet simultaneously disinterested face. "Of course I'm going in, I'm just trying to decide how best to make my entrance." The voices in her head swirled before shoving the doors. "You should talk to Kayla about why the rest of the group doesn't like to everyone else. She could help." She ignored the voices as best she could, threw open the doors, and they smacked the walls with a thud. The group just inside the foyer whipped around to her. Most, Astra recognized as members of her strange group of multiverse-jumping heroes and allies. Heath, the Kaiju Slayer, Tayron, the Beast Chronicler, and Kayla's boyfriend, Alexis and Sterling, who used to be Astra's closest friends, but things had been strained between them for some time. In the middle of them all was Benny Sharp, the mech maker, standing next to what seemed like it could have been some of his latest work, a humanoid squirrel mech, though it had a bit more of a medieval twist to it than his usual suits. The final person present, Astra didn't immediately recognize, but the figure clearly knew her. "Well, look at this! What strange surprise, Tatiana! I did not know you were a multiverse-jumping adventurer as well! It's been too long!" Astra's eyes shot wide open. "Oh, yikes, right, you're... Vasilia, was it?" Tayron suddenly chimed in. "Astra, you already know Vasilia? And Vasilia, why are you calling her Tatiana?" Voices in Astra's head started to spiral once again. "Maybe they'll understand. They know you're not the same person that you used to be. You ruined their life in any way. Astra cleared her throat. "I spent a lot of time in Tayron's dimension before I met some of you, and after I left Sterling and Alexis. Anyway, I may have taken a few different identities on while I was there, gone on some adventures, met some people, then took off. My name is actually Astra. I'm an overseer for the world we're in now, Vasilia, like what Tayron is to your world." Alexis sneered. "Except Tayron actually does his job. Don't take it personally, Vasilia. You're not the first person she's lied to about who she is." The words stung, but Astra was practically getting numb to Alexis hating her at this point. "Bah, it's all same to me. You paid in full for armors I made you, and from what I recall, you were quite honorable warrior on our hunts. Astra it is. I will do my best to forget the name Tatiana Angel." Astra and Sterling's faces both went beet red, and the group went quiet. The silence was only broken when Benny glanced around and said, "I'm not good with recalling people's last names too much. You know, I'm more of a first name guy. First names are really more important. But, I'm pretty sure Sylvie here is named Sterling Angel, right? Is that why we're having this real awkward silence right now?" Before anyone could answer, another figure stepped through the doors behind Kayla and Astra. Astra was glad to have a distraction from the awkwardness, but her embarrassment turned to anger when she saw who had entered. "Sorry I'm late," said Koshmara, a short figure with 2 demonic arms and a half-demon face. Everybody's eyes seemed to light up at seeing her come in. Except, of course, for Astra's. "I was dealing with some stuff in my world." "Whoa! Benny, Vasilia, you finished the Sheetnik's new armor already?" Everyone's eyes darted back to the red-clad figure, who'd said nothing so far. Yeah, it went faster than we thought, too. Pairing Vasilia's magic with my mech tech was like shooting snails in a pail. And I gotta say, this might be the best thing either of us ever did make. Indeed, and we were just working out little competition idea to test out the armor properly. Yeah, see, we got a bunch of folks in this group here that like making stuff, right? I make mech armors, Vasilia makes knight armors, Tyron makes dragons. Heck, Astra, if you wanted to make one of your weird little fusion monster things too, you could join in as well. Astra's anger at Mara's presence somewhat fizzled at the offer of inclusion. We figured we could all make some stuff, armors or creatures or whatever, for another member of this group. Then they could use that to ride or wear whatever, and have a little free-for-all fight. See how the Sheetnik's armor holds up against them all. I already got an armor started for Kayla. Was making it for a birthday present for her, before I realized that I got no idea when anybody's birthday is in this group. That immediately took away the one person Astra would have been comfortable asking to work with. A voice in her head started to say that she should work with Alexis, but she didn't even bother looking over to her. She hoped that just maybe Sterling would be willing to partner with her. Her eyes slowly panned over to him, and to her shock, he had a slight smile and was looking back at her. Her heart thudded, and just as she was about to ask him, a demon arm raised up in front of her. Hey, Astra, could I team up with you? Astra was dumbfounded as the rest of the group paired off and parted ways. Astra had wanted to say, "Get out of my face, demon shrimp," but figured the rest of the group would just hate her even more if she freaked out at their new favorite little pet, so she grudgingly agreed to work with Mara. So what kind of creature do you want to make? Mara asked. You can use your Overseer abilities to combine anything, right? Do we have to hunt down creatures to use, or, we really don't have to work together until the actual competition. I can just show up with the creature, you ride it, then that's that. Oh, I can if you want, but I figured we could spend some time together. I've hung out one-on-one with everyone else in the group, but I don't really know you that well. I mean, I guess we kind of hung out one-on-one, but never mind. Astra knew exactly where that thought stream had been headed. Astra and Mara had sort of spent one-on-one time together months earlier, when Astra had attempted a secret plan to get the whole group temporarily captured by Eloise Ludum, an overseer who kidnaps people from their universes to put them in fights to the death for the entertainment of other overseers. Astra had pretended to betray the whole group to Eloise so she could plant a tracking curse on Eloise, so the next time she left her dimension they'd be able to find her. But Mara had come out of the whole event seeming like the big hero, as she'd saved everyone in the group, furthering their infuriating love affair with the little demon girl. Whatever, you can come with me if you want, but I'll have to be totally focused on what I'm doing, so you'll basically just be watching. I have all the creature energies I need to use already stored in this. She raised a golden shard of the multiversal orb. It was an incredibly powerful device normally stored in the Agency of Supernatural Protection's vault, with 2 of its other pieces, but the group had all agreed to let Astra use it for the competition. Astra led Mara out to the yard behind the Agency. She wanted to jump to the Everyverse, where she normally liked to work on creature creations, but figured the group wouldn't trust her to leave that dimension with a shard of the orb. She had caused a lot of problems for them with it in the past. Just another of the many reasons Astra figured they all had for hating her. Astra tapped her fingers around the shard and it lit up. Despite her frustration and confusion at being paired with Mara, she was ecstatic to have the power of the multiversal orb at her disposal again. Over her years wandering the multiverse, she'd stored the energies of thousands of creatures inside it. And yet, the 3 she wanted to use all came from her favorite dimension. Tyron's dragon and beast-infested world. Onto the field around them spawned hundreds, if not thousands of glowing orbs of various sizes. Astra started walking through the clusters, grabbing different ones and linking them with glowing strands, starting to build her creature. Wow, Mara said, walking through the lights near Astra. This is incredible. Can you explain what you're doing? No, Astra stamped. Oh, okay, I guess maybe I should just go? She's trying to be nice. Maybe she could be a way for you to get back on good terms with the rest of the group, because it seems like the rest of the group is going to get to know you. Astra shook her head. I mean, I literally can't explain it. Creature forging is all instinct. From what I've been told, everyone somewhere in themselves fully understands the energy makeup of all things. So when an Overseer is given the ability to make beings and beasties and things, they just have to have an intention in mind for what they want to make, then quiet their mind as much as possible and let their intuition just take over. What she didn't say out loud was that explanation was also why Astra was only good at fusing the energy makeups of already existing creatures together. She'd never been good enough at listening to her inner self to make complex creatures from scratch. Oh, wow, I don't know if I'd be any good at that. I'm not always great at keeping the voices in my head quiet for long. Astra stopped. She didn't say it, but she could really relate to that. But soon, the fleeting empathy quickly turned back to anger. Mara continued, I've actually been working at listening to my, I guess intuition more. The people that I hung out with before I met this group weren't really great to me, and somewhere in me I always knew that, but I never listened to the right voice inside me, I guess, to realize that I should leave. Until I met Benny, that is, and he came around and helped me see it. That's actually part of why I wanted to team up with you. My intuition told me to, I think. Why? Astra stopped moving the energies and looked at Mara. If you think you're getting better at not spending time with people that aren't nice to you, why would you want to team up with me? I've never been nice to you. You know that. I guess, I don't know, maybe I wanted to know why you hate me so much? Oh, I don't hate you. I just hate that you waltzed into our lives and everyone loved you immediately. Well, I've tried so hard to make this group trust me and like me, and everything I do just seems to make things worse. I just hate that Sterling and Alexis look at you the way they... She stopped. The pity in Mara's eyes was just making her angrier and sadder. She turned back to the floating orbs. Whatever, good for you that you're everyone's little favorite friend, I guess. Maybe I'm the one who should just go. There was a moment of silence, and Astra thought Mara may have even just walked away. But soon enough, her quiet voice spoke up again. Astra, you have made some pretty bad decisions when it comes to this group. Astra's eyes widened angrily and darted back to Mara. But, I don't know, maybe in those situations, like with creature forging, inside you somewhere you knew what the right thing to do was in those situations, and you just didn't trust yourself. Astra's heart started to thud, and her mind felt like a tornado was swirling around inside it. Mara continued, I honestly do want to be your friend, but I also do know now that I deserve for my friends to be nice to me. If you're willing to try, then that's great. But if not, I guess that's fine too, and I can just go. Don't let her leave. She's good for you and is actually being honest with you. Let her go. You don't need something more than a lot of other people in this group are doing. No, Astra said, taking a breath. Stay. I suppose having the company could be nice, I guess. Mara gave a slight smile and stayed. And that was the start of what would be a surprisingly nice week for both Astra and Mara. A week later, the whole group jumped to a dimension Astra knew to be totally abandoned. There, they found a massive, crumbling coliseum, perfect for the day's events. Astra's creature had taken a little over a day to complete. It was a blend of a monolithic shin god, a sonic soaring wyvern, and an albino echo imp. A fusion that, for some reason, Mara had decided to name Scott. It may have annoyed Astra a week earlier, but now she thought it was a funny choice. The creature was incredibly powerful for its relatively small size, and Mara had been training with it the last few days, but the others all had impressive entrants as well. Benny jumped up onto a toppled pillar. Alright, Shop Gang, we got one heck of a matchup for you all today. They'd all stopped protesting, Benny referring to them as the Sharp Gang, and he took that as a sign that they'd all finally grudgingly accepted it as the group's name. Now the rules is simple. Nobody can actually use their powers. They just gotta use the creature or the armor that they got. Your armor gets too busted up, you're out. Your creature dies or is knocked out, you're out. Last thing standing wins. My money's still on Zashitnik, but who knows, we got some other cool looking stuff around here. He specifically looked up at Astra's creature. She smirked and raised her fist towards Mara next to her. Mara flinched at the gesture anxiously. Mara, It's a fist bump. I wasn't going to punch you. Oh, I knew that. Mara lifted her large demon fist and bumped it as lightly as she could. Astra's eyes glanced up at the stony dragon that Tayrin had brought. He likely would have worked with Kayla if Benny hadn't claimed her as a partner already, so instead he'd made a creature for Alexis that somewhat resembled her and her abilities. As Astra watched Alexis leap up onto her creature, her head started swirling. Just relax, this is going to be fun, and the group will see how well you and Mara have been working together this week, and maybe they'll have more respect for you. Hey, Astra, Mara said, jolting Astra from her thoughts. Yeah, what is it, Mara? Nothing, you had that, the thought spiraling kind of look. You okay? Astra grinned softly. The week spent with Mara had its bumps, but they really had connected. Astra had been surprised by how nice of a time they'd had. Yeah, I'm fine. Now, get on that thing and get ready to show everyone why I'm better at making things than all of them. Mara chuckled, then leapt up onto her creature. The onlookers moved into the stands and the contestants readied up. Kayla, in her mech armor, Heath, in his knight's armor, Alexis, on her dragon, Mara, on her fusion creature, and of course, Zashitnik, who Astra still hadn't met yet, but had been too focused on everything else to introduce herself to whoever he was. Everyone was ready and waiting. They watched, eagerly. Still waiting. For something. After a moment, everyone looked at Benny.
What? You all need an invitation or something? Just stop fighting already.
Alexis slapped the back of her mount and the creature shot straight towards Zashitnik. She yelled, "You want us to test out that armor, Benny? Here it goes, but we're not pulling any punches." Her dragon let out a thundering bellow as the red gems along its back lit up. Rubble from the Colosseum shot off the ground right in front of the dragon's mouth, clustered together, then fired at Zashitnik. He swirled his spear gracefully while turning his back to the blast and pointing the tail of his armor at the projectile. He fired a beam of blue energy at it and the rocks erupted, flying all around Zashitnik and not hitting him once. Kayla's mech armor had grown a set of rollerblades and she bolted towards Heath. Her arm converted into a cannon, just as it could if Charlie were still attached to her. "I'm coming for you, Heath, and don't take it personally. This is just the only opportunity I'll ever have to actually beat you in a fight." Heath cocked his fists.
"I might not be able to use my powers, Kayla, but I'm still 300 pounds of muscle in a near unbreakable Vasilia original armor." "Yes, Hurricane Man!" Vasilia yelled from the stands. "You could crush her bones to dust! But, do not do that. It's friendly competition, obviously."
Kayla rolled around him, firing pulses of blue plasma. Heath punched them all out of the air, then bolted after her. She screeched to a stop and let him get close. He leapt into the air with his metal gauntlet cocked back.
"Kuznat, Crusher!"
He blasted his fist forward, but she ducked under it. His momentum threw him onto her shoulders, and she thrust upwards, hurling him onto his back. Kayla was ready to turn and fire on her downed opponent, but Zashitnik darted past them, and suddenly a boulder fired from the air and hammered Kayla into the ground. Alexis's beast was still after Zashitnik, but he was incredibly acrobatic in his suit, bounding off of rocks and ducking under every projectile. Alexis was so fixated on her target that she didn't see Mara and Scott soaring through the air behind them. "Let's see who's got a tougher dragon, Alexis." Scott slashed his talons across the stone dragon's wings, but they barely left a scratch. Alexis whipped around and tugged at her dragon's head. It swirled its boulder-coated arm and smacked Scott in the stomach, shoving him and Mara backwards. The creature quickly corrected its flight and opened its double-hinged maw. It fired a screeching cannon of sound at Alexis and her creature. Alexis grabbed her ears to cover them, and her dragon shook furiously at the noise. Astra cringed from the stands at Mara targeting Alexis, but knew she couldn't do anything about it other than watch. Alexis's creature hovered down towards the ground, but seemed to start pushing through the sound blast. It opened its maw wide and nearby rocks started shooting towards it. But Zashitnik had leapt on to one of the boulders. He soared straight towards Alexis's dragon, and when he was close enough, thrust his spear right into the creature's throat. The other boulders stumbled back to the ground, and the dragon went limp. Everyone was shocked to see Alexis out first, including Alexis. "Sorry," Mara yelled as her creature stopped firing. "You still fought really well." She and Scott flew off to face the others. Alexis stomped out of the arena, as angry as Astra would expect to see her after coming in last in any kind of competition. You should go talk to her. It's not ideal timing, but you're so long overdue to have a conversation with her about your friendship. This could be good for both of you. Even Astra tried to quiet all her thoughts, but she had no idea how to do that. Instead, she just went with the first voice that had spoken to her, and went after Alexis. Alexis had marched off into a crumbling hallway, and Astra ran in after her. Hey, Alexis! Her heart pounded, and she felt dizzy. Alexis stopped and darted her head back, leering at Astra. What do you want? Astra had thought about what she could possibly say to Alexis 1,000 times, and all the options she'd considered spiraled through her mind just then. But she just said, Alexis, I want you to freak out at me. What? What are you talking about? Go back and watch the stupid fight. This is more important than that. Even before the whole, Eloise thingy, ever since I got back, you've just looked at me as if you just want to constantly freak out at me, and I want you to just do it, and, I don't know, get it out of your system? Alexis's eyes might as well have erupted in flames. Out of my system? You think that yelling at you once is gonna undo the fact that you lied to me for 6 years about who you were, set demons onto innocent people as a part of some sick game, then abandoned us for another 4 years and pretended you were dead, only to pop up after I'd already finally gotten over your death, just to say, by the way, I'm not really dead, and I was never the person you actually thought I was. But worst of all, you've been back for a year, and what effort have you really made to try and be my friend again? You barely even make eye contact with me, let alone try to spend time with just me. You might as well have not come back at all. You're basically just a living reminder of the friend I lost. Diamos was my friend, and she or you or whatever never really came back. So far, Astra is just some person who's almost gotten me and all of my friends killed. Astra just stood there in shock. It was exactly as bad as she'd expected. And yet, somehow, she was at least relieved it was finally happening. I get it. I don't even remotely deserve your friendship. And if you want me to, if I am just reminding you of what you lost, I will go. Alexis gritted her teeth. I don't want you to go. I just want some kind of sign that my friend actually is back. That this version of you really is anything like who you were back then. Suddenly, and shockingly to even her, seemingly out of nowhere, Astra smirked and could barely hold back a laugh. Do you remember the day we realized what Sterling's type is? Dating-wise? Alexis gave no response. You were telling me about the last girl he'd dated who turned out to literally have been a wanted fugitive who had a gang coming after her for stealing a motorcycle from them. He was trying to make it sound like a reasonable situation when you pointed out that since he and I had just started dating, and at the time I was pretending to be Satan's daughter, that he was exclusively attracted to women who very well might get him killed one day. And he said that was silly and started trying to give all these examples of celebrities he'd had crushes on before, and it turned out all of them had criminal charges. One had even been part of a cult. We were all just cracking up at how ridiculous it was, and everything he said just made it funnier. And that is my favorite memory of all time. It's a weird memory, I guess, to be my favorite, but I love it. I don't think I actually deserve it, but there is nothing in the entire multiverse that I want more than for us to get back to how close we were then. I've just been I know I've been a coward. I should have been making more of an effort over the last year, but I was just so scared that you didn't want me to. So, if you really are willing to try and be my friend again, despite everything I've done, then I will do whatever it takes to get back to that. I can't promise that I'll always make good decisions, but I can promise that I'll always try. Astra couldn't read the expression on Alexis's face. She wouldn't have been surprised if Alexis had just walked away. They just stood there. Until Alexis finally said, "Yeah, I like that memory too." Astra stepped forward and hugged Alexis, part of her still thinking that she may shove her back. But she didn't. Alexis hugged her back, and tears started pouring down Astra's face. Alexis's voice went as soft as Astra had ever heard it. "I'll make an effort if you do. And I'm sorry I punched you after the whole Eloise incident." Astra hugged her tighter. "It's fine. You throw a really weak punch anyway." "Shut up, Astra. You know that's not true." "I know, it really hurt a lot." After a moment, they finally separated, and Alexis said, "Now, what are we doing moping around here when our friends are out there beating each other up in armors and on dragons?" Astra's heart felt like it was pumping joy through every single cell as they walked back towards the arena, to see Heath pounding his fists against the Sheetnik to little effect, with the squirrel magic mech charging up another beam from its tail. Heath thrust his arms in front of him to block the blast of Zashitnik's tail, but he was still shot backwards and rolled across the stony ground just as a beam of purple flames erupted down onto the crimson magic mech. Scott and Mara soared down as the beam of fire from Scott's mouth got narrower and narrower, yet stronger and faster. Soon, the armor was being fired right into the earth, but Scott was close enough to the ground that Kayla could dart over and leap up onto his tail. She scrambled up to his stomach, and her arm converted into a blade. Mara just noticed as Kayla was about to impale her mount. She knocked on Scott's head and he stopped firing, saw Kayla, and snatched his jaw down onto her, tossing her off of him. As she hurled through the air, her rollerblade feet suddenly converted into booster rockets, and she started to fly. "See, that's why all mech armors should be able to fly. Get after him, regular mech Kayla," Benny yelled from the stands. Kayla started to fly back towards Mara, but a blast from Zashitnik's tail suddenly exploded against her and sent her tumbling from the air. She sloppily landed a few feet away from Heath. Mara and her dragon shot towards them both as another purple beam charged up in Scott's maw. As they swooped across the ground, Mara's eyes suddenly darted from her targets over to Astra and Alexis, standing together, Astra still wiping tears from her eyes. Astra caught the gaze and nodded happily and reassuringly at Mara. A massive smile shot across Mara's face, and she thrust her arms into the air excitedly. But just as she did, Heath tackled her off her mount, and she slammed to the ground. The dragon whipped its head back to look for Mara, but the distraction was enough for Kayla to leap onto the dragon's head and thrust her blade right up through the beast's skull. It let out one last blast of sound, shooting Kayla off it to the ground before it collapsed itself, then lay still. Oh, and in a stunning upset, it turns out that dragons ain't nearly as good or as cool as armors, despite what the audience may think. Heath helped Mara up, and she ran over to Astra and Alexis. "Sorry, Astra, they were way faster than I expected." "Oh, don't worry about it. I can make tougher than that thing, and you could obviously have taken them if you were allowed to use your powers." Alexis smirked. "Oh yeah, you could get anyone in our group killed with your powers, Mara, if you really wanted to." She leaned over and whispered to Astra, "Even Sterling, if you know what I mean." Astra's eyes widened. She looked over at Sterling, who caught the glance and waved, then gave Mara a thumbs up. Mara responded with the same, toting a wide grin, and Astra suddenly said, "You can't talk to Sterling anymore, Mara. I'm kidding. Talk to whoever you want, but also don't. I am kidding. Maybe." Alexis laughed at Mara's confusion as they all turned their attention back to the fight. The three armors all stood in a circle in the center of the Colosseum. Both Kayla's arms cycled into blasters. "You know, the whole point of this really was to see how tough Zashitnik's armor is." She looked at Heath. "You ever hear of a fastball special?" Heath smirked. "You know I have, but since I can't use my powers, you'll have to do the throwing this time." Kayla ran towards Heath while firing a barrage of blasts at the magic mech. Zashitnik leapt and twirled through all of them with ease, even batting one away with his tail. Kayla quickly shifted her arms back into gauntlets and grabbed Heath's back. She swung around in a circle and hurled him as hard as she could. He blasted through the air, fist cocked back. Kayla bolted up behind him so that if he missed, she could get in a quick blow herself. Zashitnik waited, and when Heath was inches away, the squirrel mech leapt into the air, wrapped its tail around him, spun him through the air, maintaining his momentum, and fired him straight back at Kayla. A calamitous clanging of metal burst through the Colosseum as they slammed into each other, then crashed to the ground. When the dust settled, one of Heath's gauntlets had cracked off, and he was dizzily getting up. Massive dents had been punched in Kayla's armor, and they were pressing into her skin underneath. Oh, yikes, I fold. I need to get this thing off. Heath barely got to his feet.
Not me! I'm still ready to...
Zashitnik sprinted right at him, spear raised.
Alright, I'm kidding. I surrender too. Not using my powers is the worst,
he said as he tossed his helmet to the ground. The onlookers all clapped and leapt into the stadium. Sterling walked over to Astra, Alexis, and Mara, and noticed the tears still drying on Astra's face. Hey, are you okay? Astra nodded, smiling at him. Yeah, really okay. Thanks to the little gremlin here, that is, she said, nodding at Mara. Mara smiled, but also winced a bit. Oh, is that gonna be my nickname or something? Because I like the idea of having a nickname, but, maybe not Little Gremlin. Astra laughed, then turned to the victorious and still silent warrior in the midst of them all. Well, I suppose that's that. Does Zashitnik here win something? Do we all chip in to buy you pizza or ale, or what are we doing?
I am not sure Zashitnik would like this pizza or ale. He usually only eats berries and nuts and such things.
Berries? What is he, an actual squirrel? Astra said, confused. The helmet of the armor suddenly opened up, and as a mist of steam cleared, Astra and the rest of the group could finally see Zashitnik, who was indeed a red squirrel. I'm sorry, we genuinely spent a week making things to fight a squirrel?
Hey, trust me, it could have been a lot worse. You could have had to fight a gopher.
Before I get to the actual ending spiel for this episode, I want to say that this Wednesday, June 1st at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be doing a live Q&A exclusively on the PopCross community Discord. You have to be 13 or older to join the Discord, but besides that, all you gotta do is click the little link in the description. Then you can participate and ask questions if you want, and I'll be answering things for hour and a half, I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, maybe I'll see you there, and thank you very much to Love Bandit, one of our longtime mods who's helping me run the thing. Okay, now actual ending spiel. It's funny, the third Multiverse Tale story involving Mara was supposed to get a lot darker and focus on her, and she wasn't even going to be a part of the team anymore after that episode. But after I did the Multiverse Melee episode, the last Multiverse Tales episode focused on her, I took a long think about where I'd planned for her story to go versus where I actually thought it should go. And I just kind of went, I can't do what I was planning to do with her anymore. It just doesn't work for me. Hence the slight hiatus from doing Multiverse Tales episodes. So she is staying part of the team, and we are doing more Multiverse Tales stuff, including with the next community redraw, but it's not going to focus on Mara. It's actually going to be the Beast Chronicler too. But we'll get to that in a sec. First, I have to say a massive thank you to everyone who submitted for this redraw, and an extra special thank you to the people who were chosen for this episode. Mayor Nachman, Cairo, Anton Boston, Alulu774, and Vaden Vince Unchu. It was really great working with your submissions, and I'm super excited to see what people submit for this next episode. And so, the next community redraw theme is going to be, I want you all to design your own creatures that are not sea creatures. They can be a land creature, sky creature, space creature, whatever, just not something that's native to water, because I'm going to be taking the creatures you submit and turning them into sea monsters. Same rules as the last few episodes. You have to submit 3 drawings of the character, a close-up of its head, and 2 other poses of it. I'll put the deadline on screen and blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff, and I'm very excited to tell you all the tale of the Beast Chronicler 2. And besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note. And the thought I want to leave people with today is that I personally believe that everyone came into this world with a specific thing that they were supposed to give to the world. But you don't necessarily just inherently know what that thing is. You have to take the time to figure it out and then hone your skills in the area necessary to bring that thing to life. And if you don't take the time to learn what that skill or that thing is and to develop it, someday you'll end up leaving this world having not given it the thing that only you were capable of giving it. So do the work to figure out what your passion is and what you can provide to the world, because once you do, lots of people will be very glad that you did. I hope that's inspiring to someone out there. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Friday. Goodbye.